Hello, I'm James, and welcome to another Jonesing for Film theatrical review. Yes, Snow White and the Huntsman, the second rendition of Snow White to come out this year. So in this version of the tale, an evil witch has seized control of the throne and has plunged the land into darkness. Her ultimate goal is to become immortal, which can only be obtained after she consumes Snow White's heart. Snow White escapes her clutches and teams with the Huntsman, and together they head to a resistance army to dethrone the witch. Now, when this was first announced, I was a bit skeptical. Was it the casting of the witch? No. Was it the casting of the Huntsman? No. Was it the casting of Snow White? Ding ding ding! When I heard that Kristen Stewart was cast as Snow White, I feared she would single-handedly bring the whole thing down. However, her performance was a bit better than her Twilight acting, and she's not the only thing keeping this from being a spectacular film. So let's start with what did work. Charlize Theron was perfect casting as the witch/queen. She gave a fun, over-the-top performance, and you can tell she was enjoying every second of it. Another great performance came from Chris Hemsworth. I'm really enjoying this guy's acting. He has a great screen presence and delivers lines excellently. And he definitely knows how to throw down in a fight, although Avengers was perfect proof of that. Then there's Kristen Stewart. For the better part of the film, she had that one-note expression. That dull, underinterested, why am I here look. Not exactly a way to give me reason to root for the character. I'm not gonna lie, I was rooting more for the evil witch than I was for Snow White. But then something happened. About halfway through the film, Kristen Stewart smiled. Normally this wouldn't be a big deal, but this is one-note Kristen Stewart we're talking about. And then towards the end of the film, she gave a speech and seemed to be putting actual effort into it. And I thought, could it be? Is there an actress in her that's fighting to come out? But no, by the very end, she was once again one note, and hope was lost for the time being. I say the time being because I know that there is a sliver of acting ability that wants out. I saw a fraction in the Runaways movie, and I saw a bit more here. And I have a feeling that one day she will actually act. It might take her another 10 years, but I feel it will happen once she puts Twilight behind her, because let's all admit, the reason why she was cast was to get the Twilight audience into this. And the rest of the actors did their parts well. No one else really gets a really large part, so none of them really stood out. The next thing I liked were the designs. The costumes look really good, especially some of the outfits Charlize Theron wears. Some of her outfits made me go, what the? But there were some pretty cool outfits. Another design I liked was the creatures made of shattered glass. They don't really have a name, so I'm just going to coin the phrase shatter demons because I think it sounds cool. But these things were pretty badass, but unfortunately they were criminally underused. And the effects for them were really good too. In fact, come to think of it, the digital and visual effects altogether were pretty good. As for the makeup effects, I don't typically point out makeup, but the aging transitions for Charlize Theron were jaw-dropping. Whether she was getting older or younger. And I have a feeling that some of that's CGI, but I know that some of that's actual makeup. I also like some of the landscape shots. I'm not gonna lie, I love wide shots of people walking along hillsides. I'll admit, I'm a sucker for them. And I really like the sets. Again, I'm a sucker when it comes to medieval settings. Now on to what else didn't work for me besides Kristen Stewart. First off, the camera for the most part would not hold still. Landscape shots were fine, but just about everything else, not so much. I'm not going to be too hard on director Rupert Sanders as this is his first film he's directed, but dude, seriously, learn to stabilize the camera. The next issue I had was the Queen's motives were kind of shallow in my opinion. What does the Queen want? Immortality. Why? Because she's evil. There's no other reason. And there's no reason to why she's evil. There was a very brief explanation to where her powers came from, but it left more questions than answers. Another issue was the action. Because of the unsteady camera work, I found myself very detached from the characters involved. I know they used it to try and make it more intense, but it really didn't work, and I found myself lost most of the time. My next gripe is the story really felt disjointed. Things were shown but never explained. Relationships were hinted at between characters, but nothing's ever really done with them. Some scenes happen and then nothing's really made of them. It was just kind of, hey, there's some filler stuff. and that really killed the pacing, which brings up another issue. The movie feels rather long. It's slightly over 2 hours, and I normally don't have a problem with just over 2 hours, but the second act of this movie was poorly paced. And my final gripe is the dwarves. First off, they used actors who are not dwarves. They used actors like Ian McShane, Bob Hoskins, and Nick Frost of all people. I gotta admit, it was pretty jarring. I'll also admit it was good on a digital technology standpoint, but yeah, it was really jarring. Then the dwarves tried to add a bit of comic relief, but it just came off as awkward in the tone the film had set. This was supposed to be the darker version of Snow White. The light and fluffy version was Mirror Mirror that came out earlier. So it was weird when they tried to do these light-hearted, goofy things. So in the end, I give Snow White and the Huntsman a good. The tone for the most part worked. Theron I absolutely adored in her role, but there was a lot that could have been better. It definitely left much to be desired for me. So that is my review of Snow White and the Huntsman. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Also, don't forget to visit me on Facebook and check out my blog. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next review.